Yesterday, Kwabena Japan launched his campaign. He said a few things. So there are two things. He's saying, don't choose a newcomer, and also don't choose somebody who's been there in the heat. But it's funny because those who've been there, the people who've been ministers before, they can say that, well, at least we were there. What have you done in government? So I'm saying you can flip the argument. You can flip the argument and say, well, I was trade minister, I was finance minister, I was vice president. So I have helped.
And manage something.
Yeah, so you are from outside. So I'm saying it cuts both ways. Right? And I don't know how that will sound to delegates. Whether somebody who's an outsider, or do people need an outsider? If you're a party in government with 80, by the time you go to us, you have 8 years in power. Would you want an outsider or an insider? Do you get me? It's not very clear, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out in the election, because the other difficulty they have is that while you are selling yourself to your own party, so your party may be looking for whatever they are looking for, but that person must also tick a national box. Do you get it? So the difficulty he has is that you are trying to sell a change message within a continuing party. It's very tough. You are trying to tell Ghanaians that I am not like the old guys, but you have to be part of the old to qualify to lead this party. You get my point? So it's a very difficult. I interviewed Jakun the day before as well, and when we go on the economy, they struggle, because when you start pushing the economy, for example, I asked Jakun, okay, you guys say, I said you were a minister for a year and a bit. So to what extent should you take the blame for some of the problems of the party? He says, well, to a little extent. Do you get it? So it's like a trap he doesn't want to enter, because if you push it too much, you were part of the team. If you don't push it too much too, it's like, so it's going to be tough. And I think that the NPP is, I think this is a battle for the soul of the party in a very serious way as to what direction they want to go. And also for the narrative for 2024, whether they will accept the economic fate they have and take it on, or do as we see some of them trying to do, dissociate themselves from the current economic condition, hoping that will give them favor with the general electorate. Do you get my argument? So the messages are not very, very clear, and it's going to probably affect them.
It's affecting all of them. And it's not an easy time to be an NPP presidential hopeful. You are looking to convince hundreds of thousands of delegates that you are good enough to win a national election. And the consideration for the delegates ultimately is who can win us an election. So that thinking impacts what we are hearing in terms of the arguments, or the proposition from the candidates. You've heard Apreku. Says they didn't find a use for me. I've always been loyal to the party. So they didn't use me, but everybody knows what I represent. You hear Kwabena Ejapon, who talks about the fact that before the party was glitzy, he was there. During the hard times, he was there. He's not a newbie in the party. His loyalty cannot be questioned. And the fact that he has a certain strength, okay, and the fact that if you look beyond that as well, that economic, and there's a tacit admission in all this that the economy will be a significant point in the national election.
Exactly.
And delegates must always recognize that. When we get to convincing people on the national platform, the question will become, were you a part of the system that's run the economy down?
That's the ultimate test for incumbent government.
Exactly.
When they are doing their primaries.
Exactly. Okay, so you listen to the propositions to the delegates, and everybody's trying to find a spot for it. So you spoke to Wache Jakun. You listen to the angles that you listen to former Agric minister. Yes. He's singing a very peculiar tune.
Yeah. He keeps talking about the party. He most of the time he listened to me yesterday, the story you read today, he says he's going to do something
set up
for
a chain
party.
of companies.
So he's almost in his head, he's saying that I am appealing to delegates. He's not even started talking about national yet.
Yes. He's thinking about how to make himself more appealing, because outside of the propositions that he has, the cases he's made for what he did for Agric, which he knows will be doubted. by delegates. Outside of the fact that he's not a people person. And the third one, him trying to let the party people understand that I will build you a viable, economically strong or financially strong party as his value proposition to delegates.
His message is a bit different.
His is very, very different.
Very direct for delegates.
You know.
Whether that's what the delegates want to hear is a different issue.
Yeah, but the thing is he's talking to his party delegates. So there is that. You know, and then you've heard Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, who told us about how he's the nexus between Kufuor and Nana Addo.
He's a product of the two living presidents.
Yes,
of
so
the tradition.
yeah, he says he's the seed
of the two.
It's a very important line to take now, because because he must establish his Kufuor credentials now to delegates.
It's very important,
because no matter how small that group might be, in a race as tight as this, you might need that to carry you over the line.
I know what I find interesting about him. He's probably the only candidate who has not run away from let me rephrase. I won't say he has embraced the way the economy is going, but when you hear him, he can't dissociate himself. So his message is more like, we are going to do it better than the opposition. Do you understand? Because a lot of these guys are like, well, like for example, I asked Ejako, IMF, he said we should have gone earlier. Somebody said we've done this. In fact, there was a story that Kwame Japan allegedly said NPP is like, this government is a case study for how not to do it. I don't know if it was quoted correctly in terms of how the economy has gone. But I'm just the only guy who cannot hide from the record of Akufo-Addo and has to
campaign with it.
Yes, so probably has to make sure it gets better.
Yes.
And in a strange sense, in my view, that gives him an advantage.
How so?
Because you see, delegates are party people.
Yeah.
So delegates don't want somebody who will run away from who they are and then also at the same time promise them something new. Do you understand me? So I think, I don't know how they think, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like delegates will prefer a candidate to say, look, this is what it is, we are recruiting Russia, whatever, and we are going to do
the last survey by
Global Info.
There was a particular question. How many of you believe that the country is in the right direction?
There's actually a new survey.
No, you know that to that question,
a lot of them
70% said it's in the right direction. 30%. No.
Yeah, but we are talking about NPP people.
Let me just. That was the delegates poll.
No, we are still talking about delegates.
That was delegates poll.
So that tells you that the person who creates a negative picture of the outcomes of the gains of the NPP, you are alien to this 70% people. That's the first.
So you're saying that delegates,
they need company.
So that's why they responded to the poll by saying that the company is in the right direction, the country. So these are delegates. So if you position yourself as somebody who thinks otherwise as a candidate,
you are likely to be alien to this 70%.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to say. Yes,
you get me. But again, coming to Kwame Japan, I mean, what else were we expecting him to say? I think he hit all the right notes. You know, he's a politician. He's an engineer, but he's not applying for a consultancy job. Yeah. He is using all the elements of political communication. You understand? Yeah. He talks about he's been in the party longer than most. Really. Good. He was part of the people who brought Afoko over in team. Team was there before Afoko. How about that? You know, but when it suits you, you can use all the jargons and create images in the eyes of people to get your way and to get. It's okay. I think.
Why did Kwame Japan bring Afoko?
No, I said he was part of the team. How can he bring?
No, I just wanted to.
He was part of that supporters of Afoko over in team. We all know that. Oh. Yes. So I'm just saying that if it's just about who has been there long enough, then he probably may not have been the one.
I wanted to give you
beyond
more.
that again. Let's also look at the content. For instance, Boakye Jaako. He had to leave his job in New York to come and support the party, and that's deep sacrifice. So the depth of his sacrifice is something that is of the essence. So I don't think it just has to be I was there before you kind of thing, because Boakye Jaako had to leave something from wherever he is. Baumia had to leave his job to also come. And it's all part of the sacrifice. It all depends on where you find yourself at the time. I mean, Opon Nkrumah is a minister. When he was sitting on Joy FM, did he hold a party card? No. You understand? So it means he didn't come early. I think
We didn't know.
I don't know.
that's what I'm saying. But did you hear that he was part of anything?
I'm trying to draw a distinction between what is the fact of holding and not holding. Holding, people would know, or people would not know. You understand? Or not holding at all is an entirely different matter.
Yeah.
So it may be
also when, of course, because president stakes are higher, people would raise loyalty questions for president at a higher level than say an individual MP in a constituency.
That's correct. But again, how do you know that Baumia never had?
Oh no, because sometimes it came up. In fact,
No, but we know because when he came up in 2008,
Yeah.
one of the reasons
Because
why.
of the job he was doing.
No, I'm coming. We are saying that what everybody MPP knows is that as of 2008, he was not a card-carrying member of the party.
Which is fine.
as of the time
That he was running
it
mate.
was made to
Yes.
make him running mate.
Yes, that was clear.
Which is fine. But what I'm saying is that it's also, to put it in context, let's look at what they lose when they take the decision to come into mainstream.
Which is why I give the Jaco example.
Exactly.
Fair enough. I wanted to move the discussion on. So the data you referred to was for April. No, actually, it was for the poll that was in June for MPP delegates. Now we have a new poll which is for the whole country, but they break it down into party supporters of NDC, party supporters of MPP, and then they ask the direction of the country. Okay. Now I'm trying to use that to just make a point. So 70% of the delegates of MPP say the country is heading in the right direction, and then 30% say the wrong direction. Now when you come to the overall sample, this is MPP. So this is not even delegates. This is voters of all party.
Yeah.
The people who think the country is going in the right direction has increased from 19 in April to 26. All voters. And then those who think the country is heading in the wrong direction has decreased from 74 to 63. So it's now 63 wrong direction, 26 right direction, 11% no opinion. All right. So the point is that between April and July, there's been a little uptick in the view of the country is a bit more favorable. But when you go into the breakdown, that's where it's very interesting. So when you look at the party affiliation among NDC supporters, 85% of them say the country is headed in the wrong direction. 7% says in the right direction. 8% say they have no opinion. So NDC voters, 85%. These are NDC supporters.
Yeah.
MPP supporters, 49% say right direction. 41% say wrong direction. And 10% say no opinion. So I think it goes back to the point. So MPP people, and these are people who say they vote for MPP. We are not even talking about delegates, general poll.
Yeah.
So they are saying that 50% of them say the country is in the right direction. 41% say wrong direction. So 50-50. So even in the MPP, do you get me? Even in MPP supporters, they are split on where the country is going. So
And that number will include delegates and
no, so
voters.
it just goes to show that the closer you are to the party, the
Your
more you are
opinions are-
disposed. So if you say you are an MPP, and I'm saying this to say that it proves that some of the polls may be right, because a delegate has a vested interest in the MPP,
Yes.
which is bigger than an MPP supporter who votes for MPP. Now, if you look at floating voters, somebody who says, I don't support any party, 71% of them say the country is headed in the wrong direction. 18% say right direction. 11% say I'm not going to tell you. People who are undisclosed, 77% say wrong direction. 17% say right direction. And then NDC supporters, 89% say wrong direction. So when you put all of those three together, it's a big no. But even among MPP voters, they are split down the middle. But mind you, this is, where are we now? We are in July 2023. We have at least another 1 year, July 2024, and then August, September, October, November, December. So that's 12 months plus 5. That's how many months?
17.
So it's a long time. It's a long time. President job approval as well. It's a little uptick. April, 29% among all voters is now 34 who say they approve.
Horrible for a
Yes.
president.
Who says they disapprove? 65 has reduced to 60. So 60 disapprove. 6% have no opinion. And then again by party affiliation, NPP voters, 60%, and this is very interesting, 60% of the voters approve, NPP voters.
They approve of the job of the president.
Yes, and 38% disapprove. Now, I'm saying this to say that, you see, then this is how I see it. 49% say the country is heading in the right direction, right? But 60% say they approve of his job rating. So among NPP voters, they like the man, at least compared to where the country is going. In where the country is going, they are more objective. do you know what I'm saying? And I think some of these things feed into the way delegates also think, right? Because 60% of the NPP voters say Akufo-Addo, Yankonkwa, 38% say no, 2% say no. Of course, NDC supporters, 82% disapprove. Floating voters, 67% disapprove. Others, 63% disapprove. Then, performance of government, all voters, 46% say very, very poor. 29% say average. 18% say, 7% say excellent. 18% say very good. So, I think that the call for debate by Kwabena Agyapong is interesting. That's one of the headlines that was missed. It's only Charles who raised that headline during the interview. I did see it on your website. Kwabena Agyapong is saying that there should be a platform to debate. As I don't know what you think about that. What do you,
Brown hopeful.
do you think that will? What do you think that will do? Is it okay? Is it feasible? Will it work?
We've always tried to do this, but the thing is that it won't happen because people believe that they have already chalked some advantages, which advantages could be exposed if they get themselves on some of these small platforms. So that's why it's not likely to happen at that level, you know. But if it did happen, that would be a good step in the right direction.
If it did happen, do you know one of the ways in which you see a developed democracy is when not even just a democracy where the institution is able to bring the party people together to have these debates. I feel like we could have even had thematic debates where you can do an economic one. Because a lot of these cases are on economy, then you can do a corruption one. It will be very interesting. So we have Baumia, Alan, and the others talking about economy and the different ways they see it. I think in the interest of the party, if they even did that debate, it will give people a favorable view of them.
Well, it will. That's what I meant. That's what I said.
It
It's
will,
a step in the right. You see, but when you are going to a debate with somebody who has nothing to lose, quote unquote, you better be careful.
No. Is that? What do you mean? I have nothing to lose.
I mean, look.
No, but they don't choose everybody.
No, listen.
Yeah.
If Kwabena Agyapong does not win this primaries, it's no news.
Yes, but some people, if they don't win, it's more serious for them.
Yes, Kwabena Agyapong.
So you say he has less to lose.
I wouldn't say less. What I'm saying is that I'm talking as a media person.
I get you.
If Kwabena Agyapong does not win, it's no news.
Life goes on.
If Baumia does not win, it's major news.
Okay.
In fact, it's international news.
So your point will be that the people around the vice president may be very cautious of what kind of debate to allow him to enter.
Yes.
But what if there's a proven contender? So again, what you say is true. If so, in some cases in the US, when they realize that this is a 2-horse race,
You have to face off.
they realize that no, then they have to debate because the people are not sure who to choose.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
maybe if they do the August and there's a clear top 2.
Okay, then there may be in that.
Because the other point is that you
situation.
cannot denigrate your opponent if after the first round he gets 48%.
Yeah.
Do you understand? If like he gets 15% and say, oh, let's go. If so maybe let's watch August. August will, and again, let me come to this. When I ask Ejanko this question, I get a sense that a lot of the 8, we are calling them the 8, they feel like the views of the 1,000 voters at the special delegates may not be the views of the 200K.
But that's
That's always the case.
Yes,
That's
no,
clear.
but I'm coming. But they are saying it to say that, but they think that the outcome of that vote can influence.
Well, it will.
Do you know what I'm saying? So if you ask a foot soldier who he will vote for today, he may say, "I'll vote for Nathan," but if he sees the outcome of August and realize that Samenz has got 90%,
We've had this same discussion in this studio.
eh,
Yes,
Maybe
only
I-
last month we had this
okay,
discussion.
I wasn't here.
No, you are here, and I made the point
No,
that
it was a Friday. It was
the super delegate thing is now going to be the main decider
Okay.
because once they see how it plays out, people will start adjusting because it's going to be a game of probabilities.
But can't it
And
change?
people will hedge their bets
No,
against
but
the
that
candidate who's likely to
I
win.
have a question. Can that not work in the other way, where if somebody spins the result to say that what the people at the top brass are doing is against what you guys are saying, so come out and correct that. I'm coming. So like,
Anything at
so
all
let's
is
assume I am
possible.
a candidate in the 8, and then I get 15% after round 1, and I qualify and I say, on the grassroots, you guys say you want me. Yeah, these 1,000 people who are vested in the system say that
They want something different.
So come out and correct that. So it could work,
No, but if essentially
or it won't.
the way
strategies
the
are open.
but the party has a structure. The party has a path. Now
Uh-huh.
the path to the 200k lies through the 1k.
Yeah.
You cannot go and rally the 200k to come and change the 1k. If the 1k don't decide, which is the super delegates,
Yeah.
you don't make it to the 200k. Hold on.
Yes.
Now, the tone of the messaging is perhaps better explained now by the fact that in that 1k are people for whom being new or old means something. If you look at the composition of that one, look at the composition. No,
But
the
that
super-
1K
hold
are
on.
people who are vested interests
Yes.
in the party.
Yes. Vested interest also means they have longevity. That's what I'm saying. They have relationships.
But what do they care about?
That's the point. That's what I'm saying, that it might not be that easy to figure out. You see, for the 200k, the things that they think about are, how do we win this? Their relationships are not personal with the 8.
You finish your point and I'll ask you another.
Yes. With the 1k, if you look at the composition of it, if you can break it down,
Yes, so you have the
who are they?
So they are the top brass. So National Council,
Uh-huh.
National Executives,
Uh-huh.
Regional Chairman, Constituency Chairman,
Uh-huh.
former ministers,
Former MPs.
former MPs who are all card carrying,
Card-carrying.
current MPs, which are about 137,
Uh-huh.
and then National Council of Elders, and then 3 reps each from the Nasara Women Youth. So this is like the party's
Topmost.
topmost.
Yeah.
So for that group,
delegates.
which is for that particular group,
Yeah.
the economy is not an issue.
Because they know that whatever happens, this is what the message
Well,
they have.
it is an issue. What I think was that is not a determinant.
Exactly.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, they are not going to say because the economy is bad, we vote for this person or that
Uh-huh.
person. They don't care about
But
those things.
When Kwabena Japan makes reference to, I was there at this time.
They know.
There are
them,
people
it
he
was-
was there with.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're
In
saying
that
that the
1K.
food soldier, he needs a message he can use when he's arguing with his people
Exactly.
at the constituency that we can win.
We can win.
But hold on, no. The Jaco's argument is that these 1,000 people you are referring to, they are close to the top. So he believes that
But they're also close to him.
no, they know him.
Not as opposed to the rest.
What? No,
Yes,
not as opposed to
let me
the
explain.
rest.
His point is that these 1,000 people, I'm going to ask you about constitutionality and fairness in terms of this 1,000 versus 200. But his point is that these 1,000 are closer to
They have a first name basis
no.
with the
So his
candidate.
point is that
Yeah.
they are more vested in the status quo. I'm coming because we talk about establishment candidates and we talk about 2007 Kufuor Allen. So his argument is that these people, they are close to the top. So in his view, they will prefer for the establishment candidate to win so that all continues.
Question.
And then he
Hold on,
says,
hold on,
because I
before
asked him,
continue.
and he said that those at the bottom may
They want
rather be
something
more interested
different.
in change within the
Yes.
party.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, if he were not contesting, does he qualify to be a super delegate?
Oh yes, because I think that.
I'm just saying like an Ejakun or a
Yeah,
Kwabena
because-
Ejakun.
It's a former minister.
I'm just asking.
Yes,
I'm
he
trying
is,
to
yes,
establish
yes,
a
he is,
point.
he is.
He is.
Almost all 8 of them are in one capacity or the other.
So
Alan is a former minister. Afri is a former minister. Kwabena Japan is a former national executive. Adainemo is a former MP. I don't know if a former MP's part who are card carrying in good standing. Apreku is a former minister, former MP in good standing. Maybe
All of them.
as apart from even
The
in
guy,
Safwa,
the new guy
is probably
that
the only
one I
person.
don't know
Yes.
his,
So almost everybody is qualified to vote.
yes. So the point I'm trying to make is, if
Yeah.
the situation were reversed
Yeah.
and he were on the other side, would that be a point he would consider?
His argument is that the makeup of that 800 is so top heavy that, in his view, those people will be more interested in. Not all of them, because there are different groups.
That's
then
the-
there's a second argument. The second argument is about where they vote. Again, he believes, and some of the people in the 8 believe that if they were to vote at the same place, it will be fairer than if they were to vote at different places. Because in his view, if, for example, you have to vote in OT region and there are only about 36 eligible people to vote in OT region, it's easier to be whipped in line there than if they were all voting at the same place at the same time. I don't have information on that. What I wanted to come to you was NPP's constitution is very clear. The super delegates it's a constitutional issue, but his view was that seems to be knee-jerk reaction. And in retrospect, it may be unfair. In retrospect, he's not saying it's illegal. So I'm coming to your law. You are saying you want 200,000 people to vote for people. In that 200,000 makeup, 5 polling station executives in over 36,000 polling stations. So that's the base of the party. So the majority of the voters are on the ground. Then you create this group of high level 900 or something people to whittle down the 10 to 5. Is that not inherently undemocratic?
You see, democracy is what we make it.
Hey.
And let me say that at the time that he was general secretary of the party, and Kobina is a good friend of mine, I respect him a lot, he was making decisions for and on behalf of the party. They were vetting people. National committees were vetting people and dismissing certain people they thought were not credible enough to be on the NPP's ticket. So if those systems have always been there as a way of distilling the right quality of people to lead a party at the constituency level or at the national level, I don't think that it is good practice generally to sort of now seek to demonize that structure and say that it is inherently undemocratic. Because, look, all of us cannot today sit
To be
in
fair, he
parliament.
didn't say that. Sorry, Communist Party didn't say that.
Who said that?
Ejaku
It came up.
suggested.
He
Okay.
didn't even
Then my apologies
say
to
it. He
Kwabena.
suggested. Kwabena didn't say that.
Okay.
And Ejaku didn't even say, he suggested it.
Okay, so
I gleaned that from
you-
his submission.
Questioning.
Yes, join the question.
yeah, but even if you are gleaning,
Yes.
my submission is that it is an unfair way of critiquing the system, because even in our democracy presently, all of us as citizens of Ghana have a vested interest in the decisions that the president makes. In other words, we could have gone to sit in parliament together in one, sitting, at one sitting, and all of us saying what we believe
Yeah.
is the right way Ghana should proceed.
Yeah.
But we have elected people.
Yeah.
Those people take decisions for and on our behalf.
So it
and
makes sense.
the legitimate expectation is that they are acting to a large extent in our interest.
I get you.
So if that is the structure we have always implemented, I don't
So
think that-
it's consistent.
yeah, it's consistent.
So you vet people, you get the top brass to whittle down,
Yes.
and then the people to make a decision. Makes sense. Let me give you finally. This is a general poll for the NPP primaries now. This is info analytics released yesterday. No, when is 10th? When was 10th?
10th was Tuesday.
Today.
days ago, yeah.
So in April, let me just go to this. So in April, when they did this poll, this national poll in April, Baumia had, let me just read the summary. A new national poll by the Global Info Analytics for July 2023 shows that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, has taken a 3% lead among all voters. So this is everybody, NDC, NPP, everybody, to lead the NPP for the 2024 election, following the formal launch of his campaign. The poll shows 36% of voters now prefer DMB to lead NPP, while 33 prefer Alan and 25 prefer Kennedy Ejepong. Alan leads DMB. Alan led. This is the key hook. Alan led DMB in April 2023 with 1%. It was 30-29 in April, because at that time Baumia hadn't said anything. However, among the NPP votes, so the first headline is that Baumia has moved from 29 to 36, and Alan has moved from 30 to 33. So that's the first headline. Second headline, among NPP voters, DMB leads with approximately 50, followed by Alan with 33 and Kennedy with 16. So you see the skew now. So among general population is 36, 33, 21. But in NPP supporters is 50, 33, 17. So what this is showing us is that there's a clear trend that NPP people, when you start distilling the vote to just NPP, then the vice president starts doing better. When you make it a national poll, it's much closer. All right. And then he's going to release the delegates poll for July. Because as of the last delegates poll they did, They hadn't picked the forms yet. So you can expect that once you get closer to the delegates, Bawumia starts doing better. The other point is that the issue of dissociation, if you're an NPP voter, you don't want somebody to come and tell you that my party's record is wrong. So even though you know the party's record is wrong, you prefer somebody to say, I can use that record to still win the election.
Okay.
Just
That's
Because it's like arming the opposition against the party.
they don't want to hear that. That's why there's, a lot of our media is echo chambers. NPP supporters will listen to Oman because they want to hear, they want ammunition to go and fight this NDC friend. So if he doesn't want his flag bearer to come and tell him that the economy is spoiled, he wants his flag bearer to come and tell him that the economy, is spoiled, but it didn't spoil like the way Muhammad spoiled it, and we can fix it better. Which is why I think that from a political communications perspective, some of the 8 are making a mistake in the way they are approaching the campaign. That's my personal view.
You see, Bernard, I think that, look, there's a general admission that the government has failed in delivering its promises, and nobody can color that. In terms of the promises they made to Ghanaians prior to 2016, and winning an election based on those promises. Returning in 2000 and promising to do better. 2020, yes, promising to do better. Those promises have not been delivered with the greatest respect to the people serving in government. They have failed astronomically. If you look at the size of our economy now, you look at the size of the debt stock, you look at the cost of living, the inflationary trends we're seeing, the expenditure levels, the sacrifices that they continue to ask Ghanaians to make. Nobody properly thinking about the situation and looking at his pockets would say that this economy is in the right place. So even people from within the NPP have got to make that admission. Now,
which is why you get the 50, which is why when you come to the issue of direction of the country, it's almost 50-50 among NPP people.
Exactly.
So you are right. Even there, half of them say the country is heading in the right direction. About 41 say no, it's wrong, which is a very high number for party voters.
Yes.
So you are correct. But the question is, does a delegate want to hear that? So I'm not saying that, you see, hear me carefully. I'm not saying that the people should go and lie. But if you are trying to win an election among delegates, what is your message to the delegate? Which is why what do you call Agric minister? He's focused on how I'm going to build a party. So he is not even going to, he hasn't even spoken about he's talking about what he will do for the delegates, which may be the right strategy, because a delegate may not need to be reminded of the failings of his government.
No, Bernard,
from what you know about our politics.
You see, but,
you know what I'm saying?
That would be somewhat dishonest as a person, because you first of all have to make the admission that, look, these were the things that a voter within the NPP, went to campaign for.
Yeah.
I went to communities in this country to say that we would deliver ABCD.
And we have not been able to deliver. It's an admission. You see, but this same admission could be turned into an accusation.
That
that somebody is responsible. So it's right. So you can admit that we didn't do well.
An accusation.
That is somebody's fault, not my fault.
You empower the opposition, and that's what unsettles delegates.
You see, but
across board.
You see, that's a brilliant submission to make. But do you look at it this way?
Yeah.
If you first of all admit to people who are going to vote, right, that look, when I came to you with a certain promise. Generally, we have failed to deliver that. However,
that goes to floating voters. So you see, that's what I'm saying. You have to distinguish. If you are doing a national election and you come and say heart on hand or hand on heart, there are things we didn't do and we can do better. That's a national message. But if you are going to a delegate to endorse you to lead his party, that admission may not be what he wants to hear. And I'm not endorsing lies. So I'm just saying that it's a question of emphasis.
Yeah, but Bernard, we are all worse off.
Yeah, but the delegates, that's why I have run a delegate system, because the delegates are not representing necessarily the average Ghanaian. I think most delegates represent themselves. They are looking for the best way to get their next plot of land to develop. So they will listen to everybody. When they look at it, they say, "Oh, are you Alan?" They say, "This guy is looking for from Alan side, so I'm from Alan." So the delegates are not the best thermometer of the national mood. So, and I'm discussing political strategy for NPP who wants to win NPP primaries. So there's a way you can emphasize your message to satisfy the delegate to get his vote. When it comes to a national campaign, it's a different issue. Do you understand me? Which is why they attack the opponent. Opponent also attacks them. It seems to me as if some of the NPP flag bearer aspirants are running a primary campaign like they are doing a national campaign.
Yeah, that's a huge
Which
mistake, though.
which I think is a miscalculation. But what do I know? I sit in the studio. They go out in terms of talk to the delegates. I don't know. I just felt like I think that we should take a close look at the polls as well because they say a lot more. And I'm not one of those who believe that we should denigrate polls because you see a lot of times in Ghana we are like, oh, the polls don't make sense. They don't work.
Bernard, it's because of earlier polls that we've seen in this
Yeah,
country.
but you see,
That's why.
we improve every day.
Kululu polls,
No, but
those
Papa, you
tests
see,
that
sometimes
we
no.
have encountered.
I get it, but see, if you want to enrich the discourse, you must do the legwork, which people are doing.
that's true.
And we have to admit that human behavior can be studied and has been studied.
Very much so.
And now we are all able to tell you what delegates think in some areas. Which is why what we do is that when we do the polls, we also go on the ground to just recheck it. All right. So otherwise, everybody will come with their anecdotal wisdom and tell you that, oh, I think it's going to happen. And we cannot improve the system purely based on that. And I haven't taken your comment, Nathan. Any quick thoughts on the Kwabena Gyekye? Because for you, the people in the sports fraternity, I know you guys like him because he's one of you.
Oh, no,
No. A lot of the journalists like him.
no.
He
you
does
see,
have history.
You can't take.
But we all like him.
Let me deal with it later.
Okay.
I want to know what your thoughts are on his campaign launch, his use of media,
Okay.
and all of that.
Well, to be honest, everything I heard him say yesterday, I've heard him say on different interviews in different iterations. So I wasn't too surprised to hear him say that. It just now he had now formally played his hand that he was going to contest. What I think the key part, or for me, what I find to be the anchor of his message is this longevity and loyalty thing that he's always espoused. That even when things were horrible, I was there.
Yeah.
When it wasn't palatable, I decided to do it. And when you speak to some of his colleagues at the time, they found his decision to jump headfirst into mainstream politics a little worrying because that time it wasn't really fashionable to do it, but he decided to.
Even while he was working in
While he was still working.
I think he was working in some government agency.
Yeah, he was. He was.
No, at the time he was a spokesperson for government resigned.
No.
No. This was before. He was
Before.
working.
When he was
He
doing
was working
commentary.
at the
Before
ministry,
2000.
not
you're
so.
talking
Yeah,
about.
so he
But
was-
at
At the
time, he
hall
ran
of.
for president.
You are not listening to him. We are saying that at the time that he was working
This was
in
early 90s.
government,
Yes.
in the 90s,
He was
coming to even
he was
do
an
commentary
engineer.
Oh,
you know.
and then talking points and all those things he was doing. I think he was working at Ministry of Roads or
Yes,
Highways.
Ministry
or
of
something.
Roads,
Highways.
yes.
Yeah.
You know,
So he's shown his hand very early and managed to survive. And the other point though is that
It's about
because
his history.
you don't get me, yes, because of what happened to his father,
He-
also had a certain level of
Aversion,
he's
disdain.
he's a special person in the party because he's emblematic of the
of
suffering
the suffering,
of that
yes.
tradition.
If you want a poster child of
Do you understand?
what the days were.
And
That's
I
Kwabena
think,
Gyekye. His dad was
for
caught
me,
up
I
in it.
think again, political strategy. I think he and Ejakun can emphasize that a bit more because when you talk about campaigns, Ejakun was shot. He was sent to the morgue and he survived. Right? Kwabena Gyekye's father was taken from his house as a 19-year-old and killed. You know when you listen to US campaigns, listen,
These
they
are the things
they
Self-
weave their personal story more
Yeah, people talk
into
about
the campaign. I feel like they are not, of course, maybe they don't have a lot of money or whatever. They are not using that enough because it's a very powerful story that against all odds, as a firstborn child, you've managed to do all of this and still be this relevant 40-something years later after your father was gruesome. It's a very powerful story.
It is a
Talk
powerful
about
story.
Selling struggles.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
important.
yeah.
What I ask myself a simple question: does it resonate with the delegate? Does it resonate with the modern day delegate? Does it resonate with somebody whose political consciousness was probably awakened, say, the year 2000
Yeah, most people
or
who vote.
1995?
Yeah.
You understand? So it could. I for now I can't tell, but that's the question I ask myself
And that's an
when I
important point you
compare
raise. You know,
that message.
This point you said about when you look at the article I reviewed today about Ghana's demographic change, a large chunk of our voters would have had their first voting experience after year 2000.
Yeah.
All right. That means that this person was probably born in 1980 or after 1980.
Yeah.
Now, if you are born after 1980, some of the things that are important in the NPP may not be important to you. And I'll give you an example. So they keep talking about Dombo and all these names they mentioned. Sky, my first election I voted was in 2000. I was 19 years old. All right. I think some of the history is overrated for the current voters. I respectfully so. That a lot of young voters are looking at their living standards, jobs, and even if the person is like going to vote for NPP, he may not know who Bondombo and all those people are. And I don't know if emphasizing that
but
give them any advantage.
That's why you also have to admit, which you did much earlier, that we are layering as a people. So we are dealing with internal NPP elections now. Now, the question that people like Obene Japan will be whipping up is, if you cut me, can you find a true blue NPP blood? Or true?
No, what I'm saying is that even the delegates represent the demographics, the 200,000 people. If you take the average polling station executive, he's below 40.
Yes.
So I'm saying that if you did a demographic breakdown of the 200 and something thousand NPP voters, I still think majority of them are definitely below age 45. So
Most likely,
if you ask that person, so let's assume the guy is 38 years old. He's a polling station executive at Medina. His first election was 2000. What is important to this person? As against somebody who's been in the party since the 70s. So what I'm saying is that when I listen to a lot of these guys who talk about the history, most of these people, the first president they know is Kufuor.
Which, most
Right?
likely.
So their point of reference about Ghana politics is that Rawlings was NDC. Kufuor is our first NPP president. And then there was Mills Mahama and there's Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
So a lot of the history we try to raise, the Dombo tradition, and even the claim that somebody is new may not resonate with them that much because they are like, Charlie, this party, we know Kufuor and Bawumia. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it may not, I'm looking at it from an outside perspective that somebody who's 25 or 30 years old as a police station executive in Akwitia, he may not understand when you tell him that somebody who became your running mate in 2008 is that new. Because he himself, his electoral history as a person voting is very new. Do you get me? So we need to be careful.
As I kept listening to, I kept asking myself that question because to quote Jacob Shebilamte, he said, politics is a science and an art. The science lies in the numbers. And that quote has stayed with me ever since I heard it. Good. Now, all of this is really a numbers game.
Yes.
So, if you can't capture a large chunk of that demographic, really, then
why are you emphasizing that message?
Yeah, the war is a little complex for you because now you are dealing with people like Kennedy Ajipon, people like Dr. Baumia, people like Alan, who seem to have good chunks of followers behind them for whatever reason. So
whether I feel like Kwabena Japon's message is a microcosm of the 8.
Yes.
So in a sense, from my perspective, the 8 of them have one message, Baumia has a different message in a way. It's like we are the people who were there before he came kind of message. Which I'm asking whether that message
I think that message
will fly.
No, you see, that message is really divisive. It is insular to suggest that merely because a person came in later, that person doesn't have the right, strictly speaking, to represent the party. Because, look, the party is a going concern. Let me use it within that context. Like, it is not static. It's not rooted in 1992 or the years before Ghana became independent. Exactly. You understand? People will join, people will leave, people will move on. The question is whether within the superstructure of the party and the generality of the people forming the NPP today, they believe that a person A or B should represent them. Because first of all, there is a clear provision in the NPP constitution that determines whether you qualify to even run in the first place. Now, if the person, strictly speaking, is qualified by the party's constitution to run, he's been vetted, determined so as having qualified to run. Who are you to now say that because in 2000, before the 2008 elections, you were not a card-carrying member, and that you became a vice presidential candidate, and then in fact, even in the NPP's constitution, which allowed that to happen, the party reserves the right to determine whether, in special cases, they can waive the
And I'm told there are political parties in Ghana who, when it comes to making these decisions, they are pragmatic. They will say, if this guy can win us this. In fact, I'll tell you something. One of the issues with parliamentary elections, we digress now, is when a party determines that Godfrey Akoto is popular in Medina.
If you can
He's not NDC. He's not even MPP, but his name sounds like MPP. Charlie Akoto, do you want to be MP for Madina? You say, oh, I've not thought about it. I think about it, okay? Because we want to do something for you. They say, I don't have a ticket. Oh, don't worry, we'll deal with that issue. Now, that's some people may say that's undemocratic, but we see a lot of the parties do that when they realize that people look at
It's consensus.
look at
It's
Charles.
democracy.
Look at
It's part of the democracy.
what's the name of this place? I think North.
Say not here.
The guy doesn't vote there. He's from there.
He was
Charles
disqualified
Opoku,
with-
Charles
Yes,
Opoku,
he votes in Takwa.
okay. Yes.
But the party says no. This guy has done work as an independent person who was not even thinking about MPP.
So why not?
And also think that's a very interesting development that sometimes the path to political rising is not necessarily joining a party. Because you can be doing good work in a place and the parties will look at you and say, no, this guy represents everything we want. And therefore, come.
It's just a marriage.
So inside they'll
It's just
say,
a marriage
if
of
it's not
weight.
against us, he's for us.
So essentially,
NDC
it's
does
a
that.
marriage
NDC
of
like
weight.
that a lot. Yes.
Let's look at President Mills.
Exactly.
The man was teaching in his classroom somewhere when they went to pull the man that come and become vice
In
president.
fact, Graham said,
NDC
when
does that so
Graham said
brilliantly.
when he was doing PNDC, Mills said, won't you stop this thing and go and do your PhD and come and help us to lecture? What kind of nonsense are you doing in government?
Yeah.
So
And he
the
said 10 years
consensus,
later, Mills was
building
running mate and he
consensus
and
is
Graham
also
was
part
rather...
of the democratic
It's
process.
just a marriage of
So,
weights.
Having a good estimate of the realities on the ground
Yeah.
and the timing is of the essence.
Yeah.
You understand? Maybe pre 2000, a Baumia type wouldn't have been the most attractive because you needed the wild people.
Were there some people?
You know,
You needed to have
in
history,
NDC, you needed a
experience.
Tony Edu kind of person, and that's why at the time the kinds of Guzitando did not come to the fore like that.
You needed to be
But
ferocious.
They were the carriers of the
Alright.
brain power of the
Yeah,
NDC
so in the
party.
in the 90s,
But
that
if
thing
you
didn't
had
resonate.
thrown Guzi as a candidate at the time, it probably wouldn't have.
In fact, that's why their opposition to the Mills candidature is sort of fizzled out because that's a
Exactly.
very powerful point. So
You know.
at the time, that issue was not even as relevant.
Precisely.
And probably now it's less so.
And now that we
It's
have
even less
grown
so.
in our democracy, the needs are changing.
But I want to push you.
and
I want
it
to
kind
push
of
you- I want
highlights
to push you
something, Godfred has said sometimes on air and off air about. If you take the NDC, for example, and the evolution of the NDC and the NDC's public image, and even the kind of people
What
you
they
hear,
put on their-
yes, you can tell that they've done this very great transition from having these ferocious type characters
Yeah.
to the characters who are a bit more cerebral.
Yeah, but you know the fine. That's what I was coming to. So, this is the thing. MPP, again, if I'm wrong, correct me, positions themselves in history. Which is why when you listen to a typical MPP person running for office, he's always name dropping historical figures because of the 19-year struggle under Rawlings. So you see, NDC, you don't hear them do a lot of.
No,
Eh,
the
I'm coming.
NDC
Wait,
is a Congress.
No, you don't get me. When an NDC person is running for national executive office, he doesn't need to tell you that he worked with PV or Bing or Spio Gabra or whatever.
Because it's a
I
Congress.
think it's
I'm coming.
relatively,
I'm coming.
it's a relatively
I'm
new
coming-
party
no, because
as
yes,
compared
because
to the
MPP suffered.
Dankwa Buzia
That's what I'm saying. The
people.
Dankwa Buzia people, they only had Buzia as president, and they were in the wilderness for a long time.
Bernard,
So
one-
history is important to them.
One of the reasons they do the names dropping
Yeah.
is to establish a certain level of connectedness to ethnic blocks.
Wait, no, I'm coming. This one.
So
I'm
they
coming.
drop a Dumbo so that you will know
yeah,
that
but-
you are not an alien in this party.
I
Your
see.
great grandfather Dumbo was part of the foundation of this party.
But you are
And
not-
at
I
times
agree
they
with
mention
you.
our names.
This is
you
what I'm
know?
saying.
They mention our names so that because it's
But
like,
the question I have for you guys is that, based on what we've just said, the fact that because they were in the wilderness for a long time, and because, as you say, they are trying to, in MPP, history appears more important than NDC.
because they have a tradition.
I'm coming. But this,
NDC is now
Yes, I'm coming.
forming the tradition.
you are just supporting my point. So I have a question for you. Is that not why this campaign has gone the way Nathan says it's gone? Where some of the candidates perceive that because history is more important in this party than other parties, we will appeal to the issue of who has been there before. Do you understand? Because so in NDC, they know that Mills came, IRS, running mate, no problem. Okay. But in MPP, some of them will say there will be no coronation in this party. This party has always voted for the establishment, has never voted for the establishment candidate. So there is a certain identity issue with MPP where those who believe that the party is steeped in history and should go along with tradition don't think that if the vice president wins, that tradition has been confirmed. And then there are the modernists who are saying, look, pragmatically, this is not the voters, like Nathan
Yeah,
said,
it's
they are
small.
new voters. Most of them started voting after 2000. So I feel like one of the things being decided in this election is the place of that issue. So
History,
if
legacy, tradition.
if one of the legacy people wins, you can say that NPP has shown that truly they don't change the way they think. If a new again, it's very if it is very controversial. If Baumia wins, then you can say that they've broken that whole idea that for us history, because right now it's about modern pragmatic.
Can I say
So it's one of the
something?
announced that yes.
I think because it's steeped in tradition, there's something to say for those who appeal to the tradition.
Okay.
But let's not also forget that within the short space of time that Baumia has been heavily involved, what Baumia has done for the NPP, which prior to his inclusion had never been achieved, is how he was able to turn the votes in the northern sector in favor of the NPP. It's never happened before. So
It's another fourth Republican.
yeah, that's what I mean. So what I'm saying is that it is also recognized that he single-handedly also brings something significant to the party, and people are reluctant to just let that thing go.
Yeah.
Take all the 10. How many are there? 10, right?
Yeah.
10. Name one person who can bring the votes from the north better than Dr. Baumia. And it's key because the north generally is not seen as an MPP favored place. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who at west splits the vote between MPP and NDC,
yeah.
you're on your way to victory.
Well, that is what the people in the Baumia team would like to
Market
push.
selling.
The others
That's
would
their
basically
selling
tell
point.
you that tradition is important, history is important in this party, and that they feel like in fact there's a queue system that the queue has you cannot. So I am looking at the result and I'll interpret it based on this point, that the mood of the party itself, it will send us a signal about the future of the party in relation to who they choose. So I think time will tell. We'll review the rest of the poll later on television, where we'll look at some of the new numbers that have come up. And then, of course, there's a poll on the delegates themselves, which will be the first poll done after all have picked the forms. So far, all the polls we've had have been presumptive. But now we know who the 10 are. So now you can actually say this is what delegates think. So I wanted Nathan to read a few comments as you make your
But
final.
before we go there, all the candidates who went for the vetting have been passed. You know, everybody, all 10
all
of
10,
them.
okay.
Yes, including my mate,
Dining.
Francis Adai.
Excellency are dining.
So all the 10 have been passed. So this is new just coming in. Let's read a few comments and move to the next.
So everybody.
There was a guy whose billboard is out, but he didn't pick the form. Upon guy. Be.
The transport officer.
Yeah. Anyway, so he didn't contest.
Still counting his coins.
He didn't pick the form. Nathan, just read a few comments for me.
All right, let's go to some of the messages. Courage Koku at Befia Nyauji. Did I get the name right? Nyauji or Nyauji. Says Ghanaians have grown wary, Nyauji, okay, have grown wary of empty promises made over the last 30 years. It's not just about policy and good speech, it's about finding someone trustworthy to implement them. We need a fresh leader with integrity, not someone who has previously disappointed us as a president or vice president. It's important for NPP supporters and all Ghanaians to make wise voting decisions. Come on, the Bernard team. I remember vividly you interviewed Kwabena Japan. Someone sent a message and said, he's a good man, but he's in the wrong party. To me, he speaks the truth. His people should be listening to his speech, I think. That's Julian Sechope from Pando Joati. This one says, it will be impossible to defend the record of Dr. Baumia on the economy, and hence he's not a good choice now. Nanaya Wintema. Kwesi Ajimandodewa says, the thing is that delegates don't like someone who will do or say things to arm the opposition, especially when they want to hold on to power. See, candidates championing the "we are the old folks" message in the party is rooted in how previous NPP candidates were elected. Alan was told to wait for his turn, as did the Kufuado. there are always historical antecedents in how all the presidential candidates have been elected. Okay. This one says the so-called sacrifice earned Dr. Bawumia second position in Ghana, and that necessarily does not mean he must be number one. We need a candidate that can win the floating voters over, and Dr. Bawumia can't do
This
that.
is the argument in the NPP.
Yeah, but who can do that?
No, go on. No, let's just go on. We don't know. If they knew, they would have just chosen the person. If you know, nobody knows.
No one knows. This one says, please be straightforward with us. Do the people called delegates care about all these critical issues you are raising? It will eventually go down to how much they will be paid, and the birthright of the country is sold to the highest bidder. The main question is whether there's anybody anywhere qualified and known by Ghanaians to lead us out of this cyclical mess. It appears no, and the only option is let me take my share because there's no leadership, no future, only money is left. Stephen from Kuntunsi Center. Daniel from Kofodia says the super delegate won't mean anything special. John Boydu's case is a test. We should pay close attention to Kennedy's campaign. If the vice president doesn't win outright and there's a runoff, whoever will compete with him will win. Right. This one says, Sky doesn't seem to understand GH politics or the party card bearer. No matter how poor his government performs, he'll prefer sticking and defending them to rather join ranks with the opposition. Jack famously said, it's better to be a servant in a ruling party than a king.
Let me read one last comment. Let me
General
do one last comment on this point. This one says, I think the aspirants are aware that the delegates want somebody who can win a national election, and therefore their message is a bit more national, because the more appeal an aspirant has nationwide, the more likely delegates will lean towards him. So this text that assumes that the delegate is thinking rationally in the way you see it, because from some of the comments Nathan read, some people think the delegates may make decisions purely based on either money or sentiments or whatever. So it boils down to how delegates think.